Good morning, or good evening, or good afternoon, everyone, whenever you will be watching this podcast. This is a podcast of the Riga Security Forum, and this particular issue of the podcast is dedicated to energy, climate, and environment issues. We could say there's a broad spectrum of questions related to all these issues. I'd say it would certainly not be enough with one podcast, but given the expertise of the people that we have in the studio in Riga and also in Poland, I hope that we will still manage to cover at least some of the main and most interesting issues that are on the table for EU decision makers, policy makers, also analysts, not only policy analysts, but specifically energy analysts and climate analysts and experts. So let me welcome the participants of this discussion. Deputy Minister Adam Gburze-Czetwertyński from Poland, Andris Kužnieks from Riga. He is the acting head of the representation of the European Commission to Latvia. Myself, energy expert, also researcher at the Riga Technical University, Reinis Aboltiņš. So let us begin. And please allow me to begin with one short, warm-up question, which I would like to address to both of you. Probably I would like Adam to start, but in your opinion, are issues related to climate change more of a challenge or more of an opportunity?
Well, I think it's obviously both. You know, when you ask this type of questions, that's usually the answer you would expect. I think it is, you know, the ambition that we have set in Europe to become climate neutral by 2050 is probably one of the most ambitious in recent years, maybe ever in the history of the European Union, projects that we are undertaking, because it's not only something that concerns, you know, the energy sector. It's not only about how we produce electricity. It's about how we move. It's about how we feed ourselves, how we will heat our homes, and you know, basically the entire economy is concerned by this project. And it is not an easy one. It has significant impacts, social impacts as well. We see that on poorest households, on mining regions, and these are challenges we need to face if we want to be successful. But at the same time, it is an opportunity to create new sectors, to create new economic activities, to develop our economies, to provide good quality jobs for our citizens, to improve the quality of life, the air quality. It has a multitude of positive impacts, obviously. So I would say it's obviously both, but if we manage to address the challenges, then we can really make it a success for Europe.
Thank you, Adam. So obviously there is, one of the challenges is also trying to organize the process of transition to a more sustainable energy and climate practice, to organize it in such a way that the balance is well kept and we do not, fall into extremes. Right. Well, Andris, your perspective, I don't know, obviously you'll be speaking as a civil servant of the European Commission, and you have to say something about the just transition and clean energy for all Europeans, and what else.
Many thanks, Reinis. I think it's a timely debate, and I think very good that we discuss it also in perspective of this security forum, because of course it's global challenge. It's something we also need to do internally at our homes, but it's also a security issue. But I would start by quoting High Representative Josep Borrell, who said a few weeks ago that we are now living in times of pandemic. We are very close to developing, or actually it has been developed, of the vaccine. So in a coming, let's say, year, we will come over this pandemic. But there is no vaccine for climate. So we have to break the curve, but there is no immediate solution to that. So I think the challenge is to be a global leader for European Union, and I think we can discuss it further on. There are, I think, good preconditions for that. That's one thing. And second thing, just to continue what Adam said also, is an opportunity indeed to change our structure of economies. And now, coupled with pandemic and deep economic crisis, our way out of it is to become more green and more digital. So I think that's the right way and direction. And of course, the institution I represent has put European Green Deal as one of its flagship priorities, and we'll celebrate in a few days 1 year since von der Leyen Commission started to work. And Green Deal has been an overarching priority, and we've seen many initiatives already presented by the Commission.
Very nice. So with this, let me also refer to the World Energy Outlook 2020, which was presented a while ago by the International Energy Agency. And well, they have basically analyzed 4 scenarios for the development of energy of the energy sector, also in the context of climate change and also in the context of the COVID-19 crisis. And there is one particular conclusion that is striking, and that is the only one which basically stands out in all scenarios. And the conclusion is that this crisis, COVID-19 crisis, and the current situation as we see it, is basically highlights the end of the coal era and the structural collapse of coal economy. And I am aware that for a number of countries in the European Union, not least Poland, of course, but also Germany to a certain extent and some others, this might constitute a big challenge. And well, we can say on one hand we have climate change and COVID-19, on the other hand there's as much as we can afford changing very rapidly without risking negative socio-economic consequences. But still, climate change, unfortunately, there, as Andris rightly pointed out, and there is no vaccine against that. But I'll swiftly move to the next question then. So what do you think? To what extent is the climate change as such, is it a trigger to the need to welcome changes in the energy sector? Adam, please.
Well, what you said about coal is very true in the sense that it is facing structural challenges with the climate policy that we are willing to conduct. But at the same time, if I take, I don't want to speak for the member states, but if I take my case in Poland, we have an energy system that is composed of quite old installations already. So we have today to take investment decisions, taking into account our climate objectives, obviously the need to provide affordable, secure energy supply to our economy, to our society. But we have to take into account all these concerns to take these investments decision. And as coal was an available resource in the past and was used extensively, I mean, the circumstances are obviously different today. It is true that this comes with huge challenge and challenges that are very much concentrated in a few regions. And I think it is a difficulty that we had in the past in the EU when we were having this discussion about climate policy, whether it's an opportunity or not. If you look at it on the scale of the entire EU, it is obviously an opportunity, but it is a huge challenge for the regions where coal mining, for instance, is the main source of activity for a significant part of the population. So this situation, if you can address it properly and overcome these challenges, address the fears also of the people in these regions, then you can make a success of climate policy. Whether the trigger is climate change policy per se, I'm not so sure. As I said, we are today at a point in Poland, at least, where we have to take that investment decision. How do we want to shape our energy system for the future?
So basically, we can say that it's a very handy and good coincidence that the culmination of the debate about the climate change and the necessary transition to a more sustainable energy system coincides with other issues like, aging, energy infrastructure, and we know it's all related to energy security, secure supplies of energy.
Yes, indeed it is. It is related, and the security of supply of energy is probably one of the main concern that we have as lawmakers, as the ministry in charge for energy as well. It is our duty to make sure that the way we construct our transition and our energy policy, the evolution of our energy mix, still enables the economy to thrive, enables the society to improve its quality of life, and this is our responsibility as public administration to make sure that it is possible that this transition happens at a reasonable pace, so that we are able to build this new zero emission energy system that we need, and in parallel decrease the importance of more emissive sources. But this has to be obviously planned so that it doesn't create more disruptions for the economy, but rather provides a smooth base for future growth.
Thank you. That was a smooth answer indeed. Andris, could you comment briefly on, of course, we spoke about just transition as well, not only about energy transition, but just transition is an inherent part of this energy transition. So especially in situations like, for example, in some regions in Germany, and definitely certain regions in Poland, which is one of the most coal-dependent country up to now in the EU. European Commission ought to have something in its pockets for the purpose of ensuring that the just transition will be taking place, and that we do not face situations where, under the slogan of sustainable development, a sustainable energy system, we have situations where people are not able to pay for energy or face other sort of socio-economic consequences. So what does the European Commission have in their pockets?
Indeed, Reinis, rightly, as you mentioned, one of the challenges and problems also faced with this transition towards more, let's say, carbon-free economy is the challenge of those regions and those countries where a bigger transformation is needed. So what the Commission has proposed, and it has been debated and agreed also by member states, was one of the mechanisms to compensate this is just transition mechanism, which includes both the, let's say, investment part with possibilities for countries and regions to borrow additional funding, and also direct budgetary allocations through the multi-annual financial framework, where indeed, as we discussed with Adam, Poland will be one of the biggest recipients of this funding. And moreover, in the MFF itself, up to 30% of the cohesion policy funding should be devoted to climate issues, and also the funding that has been agreed to fight the pandemic, so-called recovery and resilience facility, is also with the requirement of allocating at least 37% to the climate issues. And coming back to your question, this issue of energy poverty just transition is also at the heart of this debate on climate change and on Green Deal, where right policies should be put in place. For example, if we speak also about energy efficiency, we have to think about improving efficiency in the buildings, but also see how it reflects into the bills of our societies, our families, our people, and especially those who are socially vulnerable and who could probably have difficulties in paying their bills. So that's, I think, very important element where, as Commission is saying, no one should be left behind.
That is absolutely correct, and I hope that that is going to be the case. Of course, energy efficiency is one of the best and most appropriate policies to implement towards this just transition, and also towards climate neutral energy system and climate neutral economy. As we know, the best energy is the one that we did not have to produce and consume. So it's not about the installed megawatts, but it's about the megawatts negawatts, or rather, that we don't have to use. So definitely, certainly one of the most important areas of energy policy. So energy efficiency first principle, rightly pointed out here. One other issue which quite a number of countries in the EU face in this process of energy transition, especially in the context of energy security and also international relations, is self-reliance, energy self-reliance. So how do we, is it a must to be self-reliant? Is it something that we should pay whatever price is needed to be self-reliant and independent of third country energy or energy resource supplies? And definitely the three Baltic states have been in a situation for many years where they have been 100% dependent on Russian gas supplies without any alternative as to the source or route of supply. Now also Poland has its LNG import terminal, Lithuania has LNG import terminal, also Finland has LNG terminal. So there have been developments regarding infrastructure, new infrastructure that ensures this alternative supply of energy to the EU member states. And so the developments have taken place over the last 10 years. But Adam, let me get back to you again. So this transition from one major source of primary energy, which is coal, towards whatever you may find for your energy system in Poland as the best solution. Do you think, well, how much emphasis do you think you will be putting on this self-reliance on energy in energy production? Do you think it is a must-have, is it a should-have, or is it nice to have?
Well, you know, many things in your questions. There is. I think first thing that is obvious for us here in Central and Eastern Europe with the experience that we've had, and I mean, you've had certainly your experience in Latvia. I remember myself also as a kid, winters when gas was used as a political weapon, and we know perfectly that this is how it is being used. And there, as you pointed out, the diversification policy that we implemented in Poland, but we were not the only ones, but we implemented that consequently, developing this LNG terminal, developing also the Baltic pipe, connecting us directly to the Norwegian fields with the support of European Instrument as well. The Connecting Europe facility are key steps to ensure diversity of supply of this of natural gas and therefore a more reliable energy system as well. In the context of our responsibilities, I was saying earlier, as a ministry in charge of energy, obviously energy security is a major point of of concern in all the policies that we shape. We want to make sure that we are able to provide the energy that will be needed for our country to function properly, for the economy, for the people in their houses just to function, and we can do that, using different systems, different sources. Diversification is a way to provide more security, but it's not the only way. If you rely obviously on a natural resources you have at home, as we have done in the past with coal, it's possible. But you can do something similar with renewable energy if you are able as well to secure the supply of energy when renewable energy is not when there is not enough wind or not enough sun to supply the energy you need, and that you can do with energy storage. Maybe you can. We think we can do that also with nuclear energy in our case. So there are many answers how you can provide that security. But it's important that you have a diversity of sources to address it. To some extent, you can, as I said, we can use also renewables, and they are available, nationally, because we are just using the wind that is blowing in Poland at a current point in time. But we've also seen in the recent month with the pandemic the importance of the supply chains that we had, and we had several projects that signaled some delays in their investment because of issues with supply chain. So it's also important that the key components that we will need for this transition, we are able to secure their supply, possibly to produce them in Europe, if our companies have the competencies, and then can export also those technologies. So I would say energy security is definitely a must, but it is really a complex equation where you have many different ways that can guarantee the security you need.
Thank you, Adam. Andres, from the perspective of the European Union, where would you slot this issue? Must have, should have, nice to have. Also probably in the context of global energy markets and energy relations.
Well, if we look at the issue, you touched briefly on the Baltic states as an energy island. I recall my personal experience. I think we have come a long way. I remember very well in 2009 when European energy ministers were kept like hostages in the fight between Gazprom and Naftogaz. And I personally was in the room in the council because I was working in Ministry of Economics, where we saw that fight between the gas enterprises. And in a way, we were to a certain extent let's say hopeless at that moment. And if we look what has been achieved over the course of those, let's say, 11, 12 years, also when we look at, for example, the gas, let's say, market and gas system in Baltic states, it's like an ages have passed because we were solely dependent on one supplier. We had monopoly, we had our, let's say, strategic infrastructure owned by somebody else, let's say like this, and now we have changed all this. So I think it's a very good example on how also with the help of common European effort we can achieve very good results. And of course what Adam also mentioned and started to say about this strategic autonomy, it's a clear challenge, and also pandemic showed that we have been reliant on these global value chains, and we have to see where we can probably break that, and where we can and need to establish this strategic autonomy. Also, when we look at this, let's say, transition of the industry, okay, we will substitute probably our fossil fuels with, let's say, more sustainable fuels, more sustainable energy production, also in terms of end users. But then we have to look at those materials, for example, on how we produce batteries or where we purchase them. And there, I think there are very good initiatives. For example, the European Battery Alliance, from the Commission side, the Vice President Šefčovič at the helm. I think it's a very good example on where we should be moving in terms of also looking for in the future how we will, let's say, survive in this new reality.
That is correct. Also, it's interesting that, well, innovation and research and development and innovation is those are some key words in the future development of the energy system, definitely. But jumping back briefly to the issue of energy security and self-reliance, we, of course, as EU members, understand quite well that in practice, self-sufficient energy production would definitely result in high energy prices for all domestic consumers. So therefore we have developed this regional approach to solving energy issues. And Baltic states is one example, but also cooperation of the three Baltic states with Poland, definitely, and Polish interaction with the Scandinavian countries in terms of interconnections, gas interconnections and electricity interconnections. So there's plenty of electricity and gas flowing between Norway, Sweden and Poland. Also the physical presence, of course, of Germany to the west from Poland as well. I'd rather say it's an opportunity rather than a problem in this case, although, of course, the energy system is more complex than just bilateral relations. So there are third countries involved as well. But Andris, let me get very briefly back to you. Do you see that this the policy of the European Commission to establish this regional approach for tackling energy security issues, do you have a feeling that this works and it is developing in a good way?
Well, I think it's the first step. My recalling of 2009 and this development of this Baltic energy interconnection plan, for example, has been a very good example. And also when we look at the, for example, at electricity market, who could dream of also Latvia and Baltic states now trading electricity in Nord Pool, right? Some, let's say, decade ago. And moreover, we are in the process of, we meaning Baltic states, in the process of the desynchronization from Russian and Belarusian, let's say, electricity regime. And I think our further integration into European energy market is very beneficial. So to answer your question whether we should concentrate only on these regional markets, I think no, because I think the bigger the market is, the better it is for the consumer, for investments, for businesses, probably for clarity of investment decisions. And also we know that market regulates better everything at the end. So for the point of consumers, you get the quality for the best price, right? So yes. I think that is something is also promoted by the Commission. Of course, there are a lot of challenges still in our way, but I think that would be the right direction.
Right, and the price is good for natural gas currently, and also Adam is absolutely aware of this, definitely also in the light of this energy transition in Poland, and also Germans are extremely aware that the natural gas prices in the on the global market currently, and also for the last like 4 or 5 years already, have been so low that you can clearly call it a buyer's market, not a seller's market. So, but of course, the trick here is that well, natural gas is a fancy product, and once you have cold winter, there is high demand for natural gas, especially in the prime markets like in Southeast Asia, Japan, and other places where you need space heating. So the prices might fluctuate, and that's the biggest unknown variable, so to say, in the costs of natural gas technologies, as we are all aware. And also, and let me here go back to Adam. And so apologies for torturing you about the Polish energy transition, but it's extremely interesting and challenging, I think, case, also on the scale of the whole EU. I recall that Spain and Portugal used to be energy islands in terms of natural gas supplies. Well, Poland has, of course, has never been an island in this similar way. But on the other hand, now, currently, when you have to renew your energy infrastructure, and most likely it's going to be away from coal and most likely towards natural gas, at least in the short and medium term. So here we have third country energy relations on our table, and Poland and the Russian Federation, which has been one of the major suppliers of natural gas, of course, to the whole of the EU, has had quite a number of issues often on the table. Of course, they have been solved diplomatically, but still there is a bit of tension almost always there. But if you, so one question would be, what would be, say, your priorities in a couple of priorities for ensuring that Poland is able to ensure this transition to more sustainable energy production that is locally for Poland, but I am also aware of your experience related to the climate negotiations, and therefore I would like you to comment also the same issue on the EU level. I think you would be a good, you have good expertise to be able to do that.
Yes, I think it is again many elements in that question, but about the priorities we have for the transformation of the energy sector in Poland. We have proposed an energy policy with a time horizon of 2040 that relies on three main pillars for Poland. The first of them is a just transition, because, as I said at the beginning, we see that as a precondition for a successful climate policy to ensure that the regions that will be most impacted by negative consequences of this climate policy will be addressed and will be supported in these efforts. And we want to use the resources that will be available in the coming also from the EU and national resources. We estimate that there will be about 60 billion zloty, that is about 15 billion euros for coal regions in Poland, in various instruments to support the creation of new businesses locally to provide a future in these regions. The second pillar of our energy policy is to build a new energy system that would be of comparable size to the one we have currently within the next 20 years. That is about 40 gigawatts, and that would be fully zero emission. And we want to do that relying on one hand on nuclear energy, and we want to build 6 reactors starting from 2033, and also and mostly on renewable energy with offshore wind that could account for 8 to 11 gigawatts in 2040, and also photovoltaics that could be even up to 16 gigawatts in 2040. And also obviously onshore wind and a little bit, although we don't have a huge potential, but a little bit of hydropower in that. And we think that once that system will be finished, it will be functional. As you said, in the meantime, we will have a need for gas, possibly in a transition period. we know gas is not a long-term solution. It still is emitting a lot of CO2 when you burn it, even if it's less than coal. So we're also looking into ways to decarbonize that gas with biogas, with the production of hydrogen in processes that will not generate greenhouse gases emissions. So looking at using gas, yes, but as an intermediate step, and looking already for solutions for the long run that would allow to be zero emission. The most challenging, I think, and the most critical use of gas there is for heating, because today you can as we did for our energy system, we have a perspective to build a zero emission energy system that relies on sources that will not generate CO2 emissions. For heat, it's a bit more of a challenge, because I mean, we can burn waste, but do we want to increase the amount of waste we produce to heat ourselves? It would be, I mean, counterproductive. We could use biomass, but if we start to heat all our homes with biomass, very quickly we don't have any forests left. So it's not really a solution that we can use at scale. I mean, punctually, we can use both technologies. Punctually, where it's available, we can use geothermal energy. But again, we are a bit lacking of a solution, and their innovation will be important to find these new solutions for to enable the transition. And let me also address the connection you made with the international negotiations. I think there is a high relevance of what we are doing in the EU when we look at the challenges that other countries are facing in the world. And we were proposing, when we had the conference in Katowice, and we proposed to parties willing to do so to join a common declaration on a just transition. And obviously, it's a big challenge that we have in Poland, but I was even surprised to see how widely it was shared in all the world, not only in developed countries, not only in Europe, but also in developing countries. And in the end, we had about, I think, 55 parties that joined this declaration, and it shows how these challenges that we are facing, although they are maybe more pregnant in Poland, they are not also unique. And the experience and our ability as the EU to ensure a transition where these regions, these people will not be left behind, will be really the model we can export to the world, and the way for us as the EU to show that yes, we have a policy that is really conducted for the benefit of all, and not to the detriment of the poorest households, especially in these coal regions that we have. And I think our partners in the world are really looking at our experience in this regard, and the success of our programs, like the Just Transition Fund, will be also critical to mobilize more action at global level for climate policy.
Oh, thank you, Adam. I think you were absolutely perfect in replying and commenting my interventions as well. Andrei, do you think the European Union is going to be climate neutral by 2050, or isn't it?
Well, I think that's the main question. But of course, what can I say? Of course, yes, we will do that. And in fact, if we look also in the past, we've done it to a certain extent, because while our emissions dropped 25% since 1990, our economy grew by 60%. Of course, in different circumstances. But anyway, I think there is a good example. And Also, probably a few words on this global climate diplomacy. I think next year is going to be a very interesting and challenging year. We see the new Biden administration coming in. We see the COP26 conference in UK next year. Probably also different approach from UK, given the change in the US administration. And we have China, who has pledged to become climate neutral by 2060. We have Japan, we have Korea. So 2/3 basically of the planet are on board. So I think it's going to be very interesting, and how this global diplomacy will lead the way towards, let's say, probably being even much more ambitious than Paris Climate Agreement.
Andrei, thank you very much indeed for raising this global, bringing to this issue to the global level, as indeed I think many hopes are now back and many eyes are staring at what is going to happen in the continent of North America, and whether one of the biggest economies in the world is going to rejoin the Paris Agreement. And of course China has showed clear intentions, and obviously there is plenty of justification based on market processes into that. China is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, market for renewable energy and also for fossil energy resources still. So there's plenty of room to expand and to develop. But Adam, so your bet, obviously as a climate negotiator, I could presume that you would say, yes, of course, 2050 Europe climate neutral, 100%.
Well, you know, I'm convinced it's feasible, but I think the big question mark is do we have the guts to do what it takes to get there? And we are saying, oh, we are very ambitious, we want to be climate neutral. But then we start discussing, you know, are we ready to implement this legislation, to introduce new standards in this sector, to help the development of new, less emissive solutions for, I don't know, heating, transport, whatever. Are we ready to mobilize the funds that we need? I mean, the Commission, for instance, prepared a plan that was indicating avenues to mobilize €1 trillion by 2030 of investments for reaching our climate targets. At the same time, the Commission is estimating that the cost of reaching the 40% is 3 times that, and the 55 is 4 times that. So we have a plan to mobilize about 1/4 of what we need to reach our 2030 target, let alone the 2050. So I think we have much more to do, and it is very often, say, the weakness of our discussions in the EU, where we focus very much on the target itself, and we forgot a bit about the plan. And we really need, if we want that target not to remain theoretical, if we want really to achieve it, we really need to have that discussions about what do we need to make sure that the necessary investments to reduce those emissions will happen.
Well, I think this is a very good note to wrap up our discussion, and I truly believe that the 3 people who were participating in this discussion, in this podcast today, they have the guts. Let's hope that the politicians will also have the guts, and that they will have the guts also a year or shortly before general elections in our respective countries, and they're not going to jump back into the old shoes, and they'll keep looking forward and towards this energy transition, of course, with the precondition that it's a just transition, as correctly noted by Adam a number of times, and also by Andris and by myself as well. I admit it's an extremely important point. So my conclusions: energy transition is going to take place whether we want it or not. I think the driving forces are the need to do the transition. It's also the market forces. It's also the development of technologies. It's also the energy industry itself, which is embracing with every day, even more than before, the new changes, because it understands that tomorrow, that the market is not today, the market is tomorrow, and they have to develop according to what will be needed tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. So I put plenty of my hope on these processes, and on this note, let me thank Deputy Minister Adam Gburze-Czetwertyński from Poland, also Andris Kužnieks, acting head of the representation of the European Commission in Latvia. Well, thank you to myself and to the listeners of the podcast of this Riga Security Forum. Well, please excuse us, we have to be dismissed now. We have some energy and climate business to take care of.